So in on this overhead formula here, you can see we have a 40.17 rate defined upon that. So the way that this is interpreted here is this $40.17. In this case, it would be for every 1 hour we, register through that particular work center, we'd incur $40.17 worth of overhead charges. Okay. Now here in the formula base, you can see that alternatively, this can be set up on an amount basis. So in that case, it's just what it does. X3 will take a look at the total amount of machine cost that you've registered at the work center. So kind of going back, to the costing dimension, we had a 4.07, $4.07 rate, machine rate set on the work center. So basically, it would take that 4.07 times the overhead rate that we had defined herein. Okay. Now, just like the costing dimensions here, you can see that we can also establish fixed rates here. So if we wanted to have a fixed overhead, we could go ahead and leave that formula field blank and just type in our rate there. Then in addition to that, here on the line, you can see we have a fixed A, B, C, and D sections in here. And just like what we had on the costing dimension, the A's refer to the standards. So this is kind of, what's of ultimate importance, from a setup perspective. The B refers to revised, the C refers to budgeted, and the D refers to simulated. Okay, so you can do that type of cost forecasting with your overhead codes also. Okay, so this is kind of a general setup of the overhead code. Now, alternatively, what we could do, if I come over to this overhead code option, the detailed one, go ahead and continue on that. You can see here I have a more detailed breakout here. So rather than just having one general overhead category, I broke this one out into indirect, maintenance and repair, depreciation, and utilities. Okay. And for each one of these, I established its own overhead formula. Okay. So to do this model here, we have to set up these overhead categories. So here's the overhead category setup. This one is the one for the category for depreciation. It's pretty basic in its setup. You have the title and the short description. You can tag the overhead category with an analytical dimension, just like you did with the costing dimension. So if you wanted to book all these charges to a particular cost center or department, you could do so. Then we also have an accounting code that we assign to the category. So again, just like the costing dimension, the overhead category accounting code is going to govern where your absorbed overhead costs are going to be booked to. So again, this is going to be for the offset to the work in process. Okay, so that is the category setup. Then one final thing that I wanted to discuss in this lesson here is how your overhead codes can be associated with your product site records. So let's hop over and take a look at our product sites. So here's a product site. We're going to come over to the cost tab. And down here in the cost tab, it has its own overhead section. Okay, so this is kind of an alternative model. This model here might be adapted by maybe a distribution organization. So maybe you don't have, you don't have the whole routing set up with the work centers and everything like that. You just have like a distribution facility and you still wish to register your overhead costs. X3 allows for that in that you can assign these overhead codes to your product sites. So in this model here, you can see what I have. I have my standard overhead code again. And what's important in here is you have a linkage to the movement type. Okay, so I could say that I want this overhead cost of $40.17 to be registered on this product anytime I do, say, like a purchase order receipt, whenever I do a miscellaneous receipt or work order receipt. Maybe this is a good that I allocate to a job or a work order issue. So probably for a distribution facility, it's going to be these top two options that you'd want to set it up for. Okay, So again, it's going to follow the same principles as what we had with the other means of modeling it. One thing to note in here on our overhead code, let me jump down to this real quick. If you're modeling this on the product site, probably for your formula base here, you're going to want to select this option right here so as the overheads would be allocated on a quantity basis. So for whenever the product is, in this model, whenever the product is received into the stock, it's going to take this respective rate and multiply it by the quantity that's been received. Okay. Now alternatively, you can note in this model, you could also do it on a stock issue basis. So that would be that this $40.17 would be incurred whenever the good was issued from the system, whether that be through a issuance through a delivery to the customer or say a miscellaneous issue. Okay, so just the flip side. Okay, so that's a little bit about the production costing dimension setup as well as the overhead code. So I hope this lesson was informative. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel and tune in for future videos. Thanks.